listening to Florida Songwriters Association podcast. Your main source for music industry news, networking, and business education.
Welcome to Florida Songwriters Association podcast. I'm your host, Steve Lane, and my guest today is Mr. Cary Reich. Cary Reich is a composer and writer and the owner of the Jingle Writer. Cary, tell us about yourself.
Thank you for having me, Steve. So I, as one of my copywriters coined for me, I'm the most famous songwriter you've never heard of. And that's because they don't put credits on jingles. Unless you're Barry Manilow and you play them at concerts. For those of you old enough to know who Barry Manilow is, he wrote several very famous jingles and actually has a little segment in his concerts where he plays them. But for 35 plus years, I have been helping businesses make their first impression a lasting impression by putting it to music.
So tell us, what is a jingle writer and what are jingles used for?
So a jingle writer is really a songwriter and a lyricist that puts together short snippets to get your consumer that you're advertising to remember you when they're ready to do business with someone in your line of work.
Excellent. Good to know. And I know our listeners would love to know, what are the first component you need to do when composing a jingle?
So that's a great question. And there's really two parts. So there's the music, the audio signature part, which is the melody, and it's making sure it's something that is easy to remember and short and sweet. So when people hear it, they recognize it and can remember it. So that's very important. But as important, if not more important, is making sure that it conveys your unique selling proposition, your why. So there are 100 roofers out there, as an example. Why am I going to pick one roofer over another? The lyric, the slogan, is really the piece that makes your campaign yours.
That's really good. Cary, what about what makes a good jingle?
Frequency. I don't mean to answer in one word, but I will. Because there are great jingles, there are really bad jingles, and everywhere in between. But at the end of the day, if people know you and have heard your song on a regular, consistent basis, they're going to think of you. You know, in the industry that loves branding on a national level, I'm going to use insurance for a little while. So there are, you can think of iconic State Farm, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. And of course, now you've got this guy, Jake, talking it. And I just last night saw him singing a cappella, the jingle. Iconic. It's been around. I don't even know exactly when it was written, but they've done very many versions of it. And by the way, for those of you who have seen my Facebook post, no, I didn't write it. Actually, Barry was involved in that. But it's a great example of a jingle that has stood the test of time. You've got Farmers, another one, Nationwide is on your side, and a lot of times people make fun of them and play with them. So we had our Peyton Manning versions where he was making up lyrics to the jingle. We now have, I don't know where I would put this on that scale, but all you hear, I think it's 4 times, liberty, liberty, liberty. It's actually 4 times, yeah, liberty. It's it, one word 4 times, but you hear it at the end of every commercial with the idea that you'll remember and think of them. I have to, full disclosure, I didn't write any of those. I wasn't in the business, I believe, when those first 2 I mentioned were around, and I wasn't asked to do the other 2.
Good to know. So how long is a jingle? Is a jingle normally 30 seconds, a minute? How long is a jingle for?
Well, it depends. I will tell you, in the old days, we used to do long form, 60-second all the way through jingles, and there are still some out there. Today, almost without exception, the longest I will present lyrics for someone is 30 seconds. People's attention spans, as we know, are short, but the piece of the jingle that is the part that people will remember over and over again is usually just that 5-6 seconds. If it's a slow ballad, it might go into 7, but you want to keep it short because it's the part that you will intro and outro your commercial. And The 30 is really it tells the whole story. Typically, it tells how we got to or expands on what the slogan is and what it means. But most of the time, it's just going to be that intro or that outro, or maybe both if they're doing, we call it a donut or a musical bridge. So we try to get their attention with the first 5 seconds. Then we have our message, our call to action, if you will, why you want to do business with someone. And then we leave them with the tag at the end so that people remember you. Because at the end of the day, most people watching a TV commercial, looking at a YouTube ad, a social media post, hearing a radio ad, most people are not in the market for your product today. But you want everybody to notice and hear your commercial. And that's where that 5 seconds at the end is so critical, because you want your call to action and your message to be compelling to the percentage that are ready to buy today. But you want to make sure that everybody sees and hears. That's why I said at the beginning, I try to make sure your first impression is a lasting impression.
That's some really good information and really good to know. Cary, let's take a quick break for our first song called Love Affair by Chico Benjamin.
Reminiscing about that day, so you had him and that's okay. I was checking you, you weren't checking me, so I had to come step your way. We proceeded to set it off, make my closed doors. She can eat it every day, repeated, addicted to this crazy as love affair. There's so much to lose, too much at stake, but I'm willing to take the chance and fail. How do I get this done? Want a piece of 2 and 1. I'm drowning and can't breathe in this love affair. Never thought I would be caught up till I end up falling in love. I'm drowning and can't breathe in this love affair. It's been a minute, time's gone by. We don't see eye to eye. I can't believe it, everything between us always pointing finger, who's wrong or right. I never thought I'd be so stressed out over someone that I turned down. I got a woman who's at home and she keep my backbone, but I'm still the only one, and yet there's still so much to lose, too much at stake. But I'm willing to take the chance and fail. How do I get this done? Want a piece of 2 and 1. I'm drowning and can't breathe in this love affair. Never thought I would be caught up till I end up falling in love. I'm drowning and can't breathe in this love affair. 20 feet under, gotta swim to the shore 'cause I'm drowning, strangled, I'm drowning, please help me. It's a beautiful struggle, God gotta help me. I'm drowning, please save me. I'm drowning, please help me. Somebody please tell me, how do I get this done? Want a piece of 2 and 1. Drowning and can't breathe in this love affair. Never thought I would be caught up till I end up falling in love. I'm drowning and can't breathe in this love affair. How do I get this done? Want a piece of 2 and 1. Drowning and can't breathe in this love affair. Never thought I would be caught up till I end up falling in love. I'm drowning and can't breathe in this love affair.
You're listening to Florida Songwriters Association Podcast.
Your main source for music industry news, networking, and business education.
Welcome back, and that was Love Affair by Chico Benjamin. My guest today is Mr. Cary Reich, and we are discussing composing a successful jingle for your brand. Cary, how long does it take to compose a jingle?
Wow, that's probably one of the more interesting questions. It depends. It could be literally seconds, or it could be days. I've been told I'm a jingle savant, where ideas just come to me. And very often, right when I'm talking with a client, my brain is in listen and formulate mode. So it's not uncommon for me to be, while I'm talking to somebody, learning about their message and their brand, that idea comes to me. And then I share that idea, or I save it for later. And then it's a matter of it, because again, for me, I think it always starts with the slogan, the words. And then it's a matter of how do we get the right music to put into and to put to the lyric. Sometimes, again, that's just, I hear it, I'll run to the piano, I'll play it. Or, in our industry, it's very common that jingles are what we call syndicated. So the music bed that you might hear in one city is licensed, the performance rights to that music, to that client in their city, but that same music bed can and is licensed in other cities around the country, much like when you listen to your local radio station or your TV station and they have an ID, you'll hear the TV station, the one to watch, or live late breaking news. That theme is used in multiple markets around the country. So it depends on the process and who the client is. It may be, again, a custom go to the piano, hear a lyric, hear a melody, and write it. Or it may be, I have the perfect song that is perfect for you and who you're trying to reach. And again, that can take literally, if you have done it long enough, it can take seconds, or it can take, I wouldn't say days. It's really about sitting down and doing it.
Okay. So do they have to license the jingle for, let's say, the whole entire U.S., or can you license it for the world, or can you just license it per territory?
Yes, yes, and yes. So the vast majority of the clients that I do business with are local businesses that advertise in their community. In fact, for most of my 35 years, and still today, I have a unique opportunity that I partner with media companies, radio stations, television stations, cable systems all over the country. And they engage my services to provide branding campaigns to their clients. And as a result, for those people, we're licensing locally in their local market, but any campaign can be licensed regionally, nationally, worldwide, I guess, although I haven't had too many of those that are truly worldwide.
Cary, how much does it cost to compose a jingle?
Great first question. I guess I should have a class and then I'll tell you how much it costs to become one. I'm just kidding. How one becomes a jingle composer, that's an interesting question. I actually think there are currently, although I've not taken one, I've been doing this since before there ever was even the thought of a class. But I do believe some of the broadcasting, communications, and recording schools actually have opportunities for that, where you can learn about the industry. For me, it's been something that 35 years ago, I met my former partner. We connected. I started working, wrote, sang, produced, traveled all over the country. And several years ago, it just was the right time. I actually ended up starting my own company that I've had now for over 7 years. I think it's just reaching out and finding people that are ideally, I think the best place would be someone in the business potentially looking to expand, looking for additional writers. I will tell you that those of us that write, that's the fun part. That's the part we really love. And if you're going to get into the business, sometimes the best way to do that is in the marketing sales side, and then kind of growing into a relationship with that company. That's how I did it. And 35 years later, I'm still doing it.
Okay. Yeah, I know our listeners would love to know that. So How much does it cost to get a jingle made? Let's say if a client comes to you and say, hey, Cary, I want to get a jingle made. What is your process? What's the cost for that?
That's an interesting question that really depends on the client and the usage. But I can tell you, I've tried to simplify my process. Over the years, it has been everything from, with those media partners, we were earning a commission, if you will, on the revenue we helped generate. I've kept it much simpler, where what we call an in perpetuity local buyout. I know that's a lot of fancy words, but that means what we talked about before. Say I'm in Tampa, I'm in Orlando, I'm in Miami. There are 200, actually a little over 200 local broadcast markets around the country, from as small as Laredo, Texas, to as large as Manhattan and New York, and everywhere in between. And a local buyout with my company runs around $3,500. And it's an in perpetuity buyout. They will have it for as long as they want to use it. And it's intended for broadcast in their local market. A few years ago, I decided, as a way to expand opportunity, especially on a local level where you might be meeting people through networking or chambers of commerce, not everybody you meet has a broadcast budget that's doing TV, doing cable, doing radio, but everybody, it seems, is advertising on the internet. They're doing social media. They're doing Facebook, Instagram. I'm working on a campaign now. One of the things they're looking forward to doing is a TikTok dance. So it's digital, non-broadcast, and I offer a less costly version for a non-broadcast opportunity for people that want. That's about half, actually, of that cost. And then from there, it just depends if somebody is a regional, statewide, regional, or national. Those are just kind of negotiated on an individual basis based on the client and what they're looking for.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
It's time for our second song, and I want to introduce a song which is called Girls, It's All Right by Steven Seagal. You heard it right. Steven Seagal, the karate master, has a song. Let's go right into it.
Tomorrow brings would it make you feel something so real, like you could speak your own mind and whisper your wildest dreams? Well, girl, it's alright by me. There was a king who lived in a foreign land. Had riches and gold, the envy of every man. But he somehow missed out on what I have now. 'Cause every dream in this world, all that I'll ever need. Well, girl, it's alright by me. Girl, it's alright by me. This is the kind of thing one might see in a movie. This is the kind of thing that inspires one's greatest poetry. Out of a million chances, who would have thought I'd be this kind of lucky one? Girl, it's alright. Girl, it's alright by me. Yeah, yeah. sky falling down. We can't live in the past, and the future won't last. Well, if we live for today, it won't go away. So please, know it's alright. Girl, it's alright by me. Alright by me.
Your number one Songwriters Association podcast. We bring you indie music.
You know what it is?
And music resources.
You know, it's dope.
Your main source for music industry news, networking, and business education.
Welcome back, and that was Girls, It's Alright by Steven Seagal. It's time to thank our sponsor, the Jingle Writer, for sponsoring Florida Songwriters Association podcast episode 11. You can contact Cary Reich at thejinglewriter.com or 727-224-1791. My guest today is Mr. Cary Reich, and we are discussing composing a successful jingle for your brand. Cary, what is your company process before you start writing a jingle for a client?
So the process is an interview, information gathering. Most clients have an idea of who they are and what they want their consumer to know about them. Many don't, but most do. At least they have an idea of who they are, why they do what they do. So the first process is gathering that information. I actually write on that website. There's a form that you can fill out. It's an online information form that asks some pretty basic questions: who you are, what you do, why you do it better. If you had 30 seconds or 5 seconds to tell somebody why they should do business with you, what is it you want people to know? And from that interview, that questionnaire, I then follow up with them, further conversation, just to dig into what the message you want to be. Then what I do is I usually write then and there, because I'm a procrastinator from way back when, and I like to write when I've had that information, sit down and do the writing. And so I will literally go through the notes. And by the way, in the questionnaire, we do talk music and style of music. And I always ask that question, not about what do you like, but who are we trying to reach and what do they like? What's going to resonate? What's going to feel right to them? There's really no wrong answer in music, but you do need to know it's not for you, it's for your audience. And I always use the example, if I own a business and I am an opera buff, but I'm reaching 20 and 30-year-olds, I'm probably not having a jingle that sings opera. Although J.G. Wentworth did a pretty good job of it, if you remember that campaign when they were trying to create cash loans or settlement cash loans. So we pick the music. I then will sit down and actually write their campaign and then reach back out to them. And that can be literally in as quick as 30 to 60 minutes or at their convenience the next day or two. And I will get on, if it's virtual, I will get on a Zoom call, FaceTime, whatever video platform they prefer, because I like them to see me and I like to see them. And I will actually sing to them live their campaign. This way they can hear it, see if it's something they like. There's no cost or obligation to do that process. And once they hear it, with the caveat that it's me singing, not the final studio singer, then we discuss what they like and don't like about it, and then we go into the studio.
That's a great process. Excellent. Cary, let's hear a jingle you created for a client and tell us a little bit about that jingle.
Cool. So I'm gonna play what I'm working on right now, or I'm going to talk to you about, and then I'll let you play. It's something I'm doing new for a company. Those of you that are familiar with the Pointer Institute in St. Petersburg, they have, they're the ones that are responsible for PolitiFact. You've seen that, where they do fact checking. Well, they have an online version called MediaWise, and MediaWise is all about making sure that you just don't take it at first blush what you see, what you hear, that you get to the source and make sure that it's true information before you go sharing that information. So knowing their target, and their target is middle school, high school, and maybe into college. So what you'll be listening to in a few minutes is a very contemporary kind of a dance feel. There's actually 2 versions. I'll have to ask the client if they'd like your listeners to maybe weigh in on whether they prefer the singing version or the rap version of the verses. The sing is the same at the beginning and the end. But we open, it's interesting because we took their name media-wise and we turn it into an adjective. And what I mean by that is we opened the campaign by asking a question. And the question is, can you tell fact from fiction, truth from lies? Are you media-wise? And we end with, don't compromise, be media-wise. And the idea is to get it in front of people. They're going to use it on TikTok, on Facebook, on Instagram, wherever we can find those people. You'll see and hear this song. And it's actually, believe it or not, we are right in the middle of finalizing the campaign. And I did ask ahead of time if it was okay that I shared this with you and with your listeners, because it's a cool spot that I'm pretty excited about and looking forward to seeing on the air.
Okay. So which one do you want to play? Lyrics?
Well, there's lyrics, like I said, to both. I don't know, timing-wise, it's 30 seconds, so you can pick if you want to do the rap version or the singing version.
Let's do the singing version.
Okay, awesome.
All right, here we go.
I am the Jingle Writer, your top of mind provider. I write the songs that make the whole world buy. I write the songs that make them give you a try. When you advertise, it's to help them think of you. That's why you want your first impression, a lasting impression too. I am the Jingle Writer, your top of mind provider, creating sound branding ideas.
All right, that was it. So that was an amazing jingle, Cary. Let's talk about the Academy prep song that you also created.
So that's another really fun thing. We're getting ready to debut and launch that this Thursday. So Academy of Prep, for those of you that don't know, is a school that supports students, underprivileged communities, and is really there to help give them the best tools available for their future. And what we did was they have a motto, and it's a motto that the students say every day in the morning. And had this idea that really came out of a different kind of conversation. I'll throw out a double plug if that's okay. So I sit on the board of the First Tee of St. Petersburg, and their mission is to mentor kids and teach them life skills through the game of golf. Our headquarters in St. Pete, we have a really cool mentoring center is on the south side of St. Pete, and again serving this population. And they field a middle school golf team. And Rick, the executive director, coaches the Academy prep team. And in talking with them about doing some fundraising and some donations that were directed giving to not only help Academy prep, but help with their commitment to the golf program, I had a conversation with their development director about turning that campaign, that motto, into a really cool song. So we did that. We came up with a cool idea that kind of sings. What we did is we turned that motto and chant into a really cool song that appeals to the target, definitely to the kids. And just last week I was at one of the facilities. We recorded the kids singing because it's got to be from them. And so that's the world debut of that is going to be this Thursday morning at their fundraising breakfast. But really, really excited about that too.
Yeah, definitely would love to hear that song. Absolutely. Cary, tell our listeners how they can contact you if they would like to hire you for a jingle.
2 easy ways. One, they can certainly call me or text me to 727-224-1791. 727-224-1791. They can also reach out on my Facebook page, The Jingle Writer. It's Cary Reich, The Jingle Writer. You'll find me there. They can also send an email to Cary, Cary, at thejinglewriter.com, Cary at thejinglewriter.com, and I will reach out to them and begin the process.
Excellent. There you have it. It's now time for our final song called Smash Everything by Anthony Diamond featuring Big Chaplin.
Sing a song real slow. Pop me a bottle, mix was right on the low. Feel the music pumping, a straight bungalow. Moabite king, don't nobody wanna go. If there's haters in the building, murder she roll. Heard a hater night, choke 'em out real slow. All my ladies with booty, come on up to the front. Booty on a kickstand, gon' girl shake rump. Grind it, ooh baby, baby, wind it. You know you drive me crazy, shine it. You know what you're doing, rewind it. Just keep on doing it. When it comes to popping bottles, everything, I'll smash everything. When it comes to smashing models, everything, I'll smash everything. I can spend 100,000, everything, I'll smash everything. I make it come back, I make that money come back.
Who's hot, who's not, who's hot in the streets, who's hot in the club, who's hot to them thugs. B.I.G. capital C, sure you haven't heard of me. Your neighborhood mouthpiece, our brotherly love. Ain't no party like a Sears Records party. Ain't no models like Frago radio models. Ain't no cash like a business plan money. Either moving in purpose or you're dying for nothing. One thing for sure that we can't be stopped. One thing for sure is us on top. 1 to the 2 and 3 to the 4. What you gonna do when we come to your door? I got the word in my heart and the truth in my mind. Big Chaplin does a thing like every time.
When it comes to popping bottles, everything, I'll smash everything. When it comes to smashing models, everything, I'll smash everything. I can spend 100,000, everything, I'll smash everything. I make it come back, I make that money come back. When it comes to popping bottles, everything, I'll smash everything. When it comes to smashing models, everything, I'll smash everything. I can spend 100,000, everything, I'll smash everything. I make it come back, I make that money come back.
Yo, what's poppin'? It's your girl Cardi B.
This is Drizzy Drake, your number one Songwriters Association podcast.
Welcome back, and I'm your host, Steve Lane, and that was Smash Everything by Anthony Diamond featuring Big Chaplin. My guest today is Mr. Cary Reich, and we are discussing composing a successful jingle for your brand. Cary, it was a pleasure having you on the podcast, and thank you so much for giving us more information on composing a successful jingle for your brand. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Cary Reich. And if you are a songwriter, artist who would love your songs to be played on Florida Songwriters Association podcast, please send your songs to indiesongs@flsw.org. Florida Songwriters Association podcast, episode 12, will be with Mr. Will Cummington, the drummer for B.B. King and the president of Inferno Music Group, and we will be discussing his career and Music to Your Mind songwriting camp. I want to thank you for listening to Florida Songwriters Association podcast, and a closing remark before we depart. Don't chase love, money, or success. Become the best version of yourself, and those things will chase you. And thank you.